In order to set the stage for chapter 2, we need to look at a little bit about the last chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. Last chapter of Ecclesiastes. The first chapter of Ecclesiastes. Man, I'm getting messed up. Where he really states his purpose, both for his life for a time and also why this book was written. Verse 13, he says, I set my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under heaven. So he wanted to find out what's all about. Living life here on this earth, living life under heaven. What is it all about? He'd already started in chapter 1 saying, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, sounding like what's the use kind of thing. And so he's saying, I saw that everything seemed to be vanity, so I wanted to find out what it's all about. So how do we find happiness in this life under the sun? And so that was his goal. And then in verse 17, he says, I set my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. He was testing the limits of human wisdom and human foolishness, both of which fail without God. The ultimate conclusion in this book is he's going to be saying that it's about having a relationship with God, but he's trying to decide. God had given him wisdom like no other person ever had. And so now he wants to use that wisdom to try and find out what life is all about here on earth. So with that in mind, in chapter 2, then, he says, I said in my heart. Now, what is the heart that he's talking about? Can the one that beats, can it talk? Or can you talk? So what is the heart? Okay. It's not just the mind, because your mind functions while you're not even thinking about anything. I guess you're always thinking about something, but your mind is working in the background all the time. So it's not that part of the mind we're talking about. It's the part that makes the decisions, that tries to use logic to figure things out. And so he says, I said in my heart, in other words, I wanted to try and find out by logic, come now, I will test you with mirth. And so he had just said, I had set out to find out by wisdom about life. And so he said, now here's the first test. I'm going to test you with mirth. Written out to the side, but we don't use the word mirth much anymore, do we? What he's talking about when he says mirth is earthly pleasure, just enjoyment. It can be legal, illegal, moral, immoral, whatever. It's just earthly pleasure, things that are enjoyable as far as this earth is concerned. So I was going to test that first. And so therefore, he said to himself, therefore, enjoy pleasure. Enjoy yourself, Solomon. Now, if there's ever anybody that ever lived that had the capacity to enjoy himself or had the means to enjoy himself, it was Solomon. God had given him great wisdom, but he'd also given him great wealth. And during the course of what he set out to do, he shows us some of what his wealth was. And you can read about it in the books of Kings as well. But he said, I set out to do it, to enjoy pleasure, but surely this also was vanity. What's vanity? Emptiness, nothing there, so to speak. Remember, this whole thing is about life under the sun. He's not talking about having a relationship with God at all. Just leave God out of it for a while. Just how do you find happiness in this life while you're living under the sun? And he said, I tried pleasure, but it was empty. Really, when you do something that's pleasurable, how long does it last after you're done? Yeah, yeah. You might be able to take pictures and look at it later and feel some of the pleasure that you had from the picture, but really, is the pleasure there really? So it's vanity. He keeps talking through this book about profit, and we talked about the definition of profit means taking out more than you had to start with, or going out with more than you had to start with. And he said of this life, there's no profit. How you come into this world is the same way you go out. Whatever you come in with, that's what you go out with, which is nothing. And so what's the point? What's it all about? This is vanity concerning earthly pleasure. Now, I want to make a point right at this time. It can be a little bit confusing going through Ecclesiastes because you're going to see it sounds like he's repeating himself as he goes through. But when he makes statements like this one, he's not saying I tried this and did everything about it and then found out it was empty. It's not like, oh, I tried it one day and didn't get anything out of it. No, it's stretched out over time. So don't just compress the things that he says into some short time period. But having tried pleasure, he decided that it was vanity too. That it might be fun for a while, but it's empty when it comes down to the end of things. Can't take it with you. But then he said, I said of laughter, madness, which means craziness. When you think of, when I was looking at this, I thought about Sue and I went with a couple other couples, maybe three other couples. We went to Germany. Went to Europe, but while we were in Germany, we rode a train, and everybody, was wearing dark clothes, getting on the train, looking like this the whole time, just probably like we look like when we're on our way to work. We're not jumping up and down laughing. But here we are on vacation, and we're making up funny German words, like windshield wiper, drizzle flipping. Just we were making up words like that, and we were just laughing, having a big time. But you can just imagine what those people were thinking. Idiots, these crazy Americans kind of thing. That's the kind of thing he's talking about here. I said of laughter, madness, and of mirth. What does it accomplish? That mirth is that earthly pleasure. What does it accomplish? You might have some enjoyment for a while, but does it really accomplish anything? And so he said, I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine. So now here's the second test. Well, just seeking pleasure didn't seem to do it. So what about wine? Can that do it? And he said, I did it while guiding my heart with wisdom and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their lives. So he's trying to gratify his flesh with wine. Anybody that's tried that route knows that wine has alcohol in it. It makes you feel, I don't know what word, I don't know, is it high? Yeah. It makes you feel different, let's say. It helps you forget bad stuff, and there's a lot of things that people want to try wine. Gene, did you have a?
Said wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. He that erreth therein is not wise, or something to that effect.
And how do you think he found that out?
By experience.
He tried it. Right here, he says, I searched out with my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine. And a lot of the things you see here, you'll see in the Proverbs or Song of Solomon or places like that. The result of trying all these things, he learned a lot, and a lot of it's in the Proverbs. But he tried it, but he wanted to use wisdom in the process. And if you're using wisdom when you're using wine, you're going to use it in responsible amounts and not allow yourself to become addicted to it. But he said, I tried it, and also how to lay hold on earthly pleasure. It sounds like he's repeating himself, and he kind of is, but part of drinking wine is this earthly pleasure kind of thing. I just wanted to see what was good for the sons of men. And who are the sons of men? Just people. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under heaven. Again, he repeats that phrase. Under heaven is the same as under the sun, and it's just life here on earth. And he says, I wanted to find out what is good for all of our life. What is it? What's the secret? So then he says in verse 4, I made my works great. And that works is kind of like we would use it, all the things that we work at to do. Various business projects is what he's going to be talking about. He says, I built myself houses. I planted myself vineyards. I made myself gardens and orchards, and I planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made water pools from which to water the growing trees of the grove. And so I said, okay, the wine didn't seem to do it. I'm going to try building stuff and making this world a bigger and better place, and have things that I can see what my accomplishments are and impress everybody and that sort of thing. And he did what everybody does for a living, making vineyards and gardens and orchards, but he also had the means, the money to do what he says in verse 6. I made myself water pools from which to water growing trees of the grove. If you look at some of the archaeological finds they have made in various places like Ephesus or Masada. I don't know if you've ever read about the incredible waterworks they had in Masada, where they stored water in these big things, and they could pump it back out again and use it. And then some of the other cities, the palaces that people built had actual running water in them, not like faucets like we have, but water running and this incredible stuff. Well, this is what he's talking about. I made an irrigation system, in other words, to water the growing trees of the grove. And he says, I acquired male and female servants. That was something that would help me take care of all these things I'm building. I had servants born in my house. He's talking about all the ways that God blessed him, that he had. He says, yes, I had greater possessions of herds and flocks than all who were in Jerusalem before me. That's saying a lot. Jerusalem had, not necessarily by that name, but that town, that city had been around for a very long time. But he says, I just had more than anybody else ever had that lived in Jerusalem. And so I'm trying to do everything and build everything. And He says, I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my reward from all my labor. Notice how I connected the two with a line. My heart rejoiced. This was my reward. I had some joy while I was doing this stuff, and that was my reward. That's what I get out of it. That's what I got. Enjoyment while I was here. I didn't take any of it with me, and he's gonna be bemoaning that idea later on. But he says, what my reward was my heart rejoiced. I was happy for the time, and we're going to see that really that is the key to happiness in this life. He's going to say it 6 times. Just enjoy what you have while you have it, and that's what God has given us while we're here on this earth. We'll see a lot more about it as we go. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but this is the first hint of what the answer is. My heart rejoiced. That was what my reward was from everything I did. Then I looked on all the works of my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all was vanity and grasping for the wind. We talked about the phrase grasping for the wind last week in chapter 1. We all know what that means. It's like you can't catch the wind. You know, it's pointless. You can't do it. And he said, all the labor and everything that I did, all the things that I built, it was just trying to reach out for something that I couldn't get. One thing about it is, no matter what you have, it's never enough. And that's the reason why, is because it doesn't satisfy. It's not the true source of happiness. If you take a little wine, makes you a little happy, you think, well, more would make me feel more happy. You try that, or experience with no matter what, building projects. You build a house and you think, oh, that's pretty cool. Wouldn't it be nice to have one with 2 more bedrooms? You build another one. We have some friends down in Phoenix. He's a building, I guess you'd call it a contractor. He's a home builder. He builds the high-end homes, and he started off with a regular house like most of us have. He's living in a house right now that has 14 garages, and I can't remember how many thousands of square feet the house has, but it has a chandelier that would fill half of this room. It's huge, just in one room, ceiling so high, you could throw a rock and probably not hit the ceiling. And anyway, it's a fantastic house. It's really neat, and part of it is just a showplace so that he can bring customers in and say, hey, see what you can do? Would you like to do that or this or that? So everything in the house is top of the line of everything. But time will come, and they'll say, it's time to build another one with more features, more this or more that. It's just never enough. What you have to do is sit back and just know that all you can do is just be happy while you're doing something, and that is your reward. And otherwise, if you're trying to get more out of it than that, it's vanity. You can't do it. It's pointless. It's like trying to catch the wind. You can't do it. He says there was no profit under the sun. What's profit? Taking more when you're done than you had when you started. He said, no, everything that I did, I didn't have any more than I started. He's going to be talking in a while about death, what you come in with, what you leave with. We'll talk about that as we go. But so in this life, there's no profit. no matter what you do, there is no profit. What that means is you don't have any more at the end than you had at the beginning. And so all you can do is enjoy it while you have it. That's the theme of this book. He says, I turned myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. So what he's going to be doing is comparing wisdom with madness and folly. This idea of just craziness and silliness. How does wisdom compare? He says, for what can man do who succeeds the king? Anybody else that comes after him, he's got to consider the same kinds of things. So I'm trying to consider it so that the next person in line doesn't have to go through everything that I do, because if he does, he's just going to do the same things I did. He's already said there's nothing new under the sun, and that's exactly what he's talking about here. But he says in verse 13, then I saw that wisdom excels folly. Wisdom is better than silliness, just like or as light excels darkness. Which would you rather live in, light or dark? Obviously, light we would all rather do, because it far excels darkness. Darkness can be enjoyable at times, and in the light, you can't see the stars and all that kind of stuff. But bottom line is, light is a lot better than dark. He says, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. That phrase, in his head, just means where you can use them. Wise man uses his eyes. They're right there to use, but the fool walks in darkness. And why does he do that? Because he shuts his eyes to any kind of wisdom, and ends up doing things that are what we would call on the dark side, not good stuff. Then he says, yet I myself perceived that the same event happens to them all. And what event is that happens to everybody? We die. Same thing happens to everybody. This is the beginning. This phrase here is the beginning of a discourse, a long discourse on death. And so the next verse, he says, so I said in my heart, in my thinking, logical, reasoning part of me, I said, as it happens to the fool, it also happens to me. He knows that he's the wisest man, because God said he would be the wisest man that ever lived. But he says the same thing that happens to the fool, the exact opposite of being wise, it also happens to me. Why was I then more wise? If the same thing happens to us both, why was I? What's the point? Again, it's vanity. He used the wisdom he had while he was here. He couldn't take it with him. Then I said in my heart, again, in my thinking, reasoning part of me, this also is vanity. It is pointless. It's emptiness. And here's why. Here's that little word for. Here's why. There's no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever. People don't remember wise people any better than they remember foolish ones. When we die, we might be remembered for a couple generations, but after that, doesn't matter if you're foolish or wise in this life, people don't remember you down the road a couple of generations. And he says, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. Everything that's happening now, Solomon said, all that stuff will be forgotten in the days to come. That's a broad statement. It's not true in the literal sense, because Solomon wrote this down and God preserved it for us. So we, by reading it over and over, we remember what was going on. But as a rule, you don't remember what happened in the past. You just live in the present. And that's what he's talking about. And he says, and how does a wise man die? Same as the fool. He dies, doesn't take anything with him, just like the fool dies and doesn't take anything with him. Sounds bleak in a way, but life under the sun is bleak. If that's what is, if that's how, where you're trying to find your true happiness is life under the sun, then, you know, doing earthly things, earthly happiness, that human beings are not made that way. They have a physical body that enjoys the pleasures of life on earth, but they also have a part of them that thinks beyond that, or that, whether they think about it or not, is concerned with things beyond that, the spiritual side. But he's not talking about the spiritual side till the end of the book. He's just saying, how do I find happiness here on earth? And the reason he's saying all this is to tell us the point, you can't do it. It's all vanity, it's all emptiness. The secret isn't trying to find happiness on this earth from earthly things. Get it through your heads, people. He's pounding it into our heads. Get it through your heads. Same way a wise man dies, the same way the fool dies. So if you don't understand what his aim is, what his point is, this book sounds really bleak, and like you might as well all go out and jump in the lake, you know, and drown ourselves or something. There's no point. Well, he's not saying that you can't find happiness, true happiness, but it's not with life on earth. It's not with houses and gardens and orchards and all that kind of stuff, or with women or wine or any of that stuff. That's not where it is. That all is vanity. And so he says, verse 17, therefore I hated life, because the work that was done under the sun was distressing to me, for all its vanity and grasping for the wind. Everything I did didn't get me the happiness that I was seeking for, that I wanted to find. I was doing all the earthly things I could think of to find happiness, find a reason to live. But it was all just grasping for the wind. And so I hated it. You know, we all go through phases in our life where we, you know, say, you know, I hate life. I just wish, you know, things would change. I wish something could be different or whatever. And that's what he was going through also, because he could see that there was no happiness in it. He says, I hated all my labor, which I had toiled under the sun, because I must leave it to the man who will come after me. When you think about it, oh, I did all this stuff, and then when I die, I'm not taking it with me. I'm leaving it to somebody that comes after me. And who knows whether he will be a wise or a fool. The thing that I spent so much time designing and building and taking care of and whatever, you know, the next person might come along and, I don't like that, and toss it in the garbage. You know, you don't know what it's going to be like after you. We really don't care. Once we're dead and gone, we don't care what happens behind us. But while you're alive, when you're thinking about what's going to happen when I die, what's going to happen to all this stuff, Gene?
I've always felt that one of God's greatest blessings is that he does not allow us to see the future.
Yeah, that is. We all wish we could see into the future sometimes, but push came to shove, you probably would decide, on second thought, don't tell me what's coming. You just don't want to know. But in this case, you really don't want to know what's going to happen to your stuff after you die. I know I have been like Solomon in a way, but you know, not wise like Solomon, but I have collected all kinds of woodworking equipment and tools and all that kind of stuff, you know, saving up money to buy a planer and a joiner and a table saw and, you know, all this kind of stuff. You know what's going to happen to that when I go? My kids are going to sell it in a garage sale. get, 5 cents on the dollar for whatever it is that I labored so hard to get and had so much pride in and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what he's talking about. We all know and have those kind of feelings. So then he says, yet he will rule over all my labor in which I toiled and in which I have shown myself wise under the sun. Somebody else is going to rule over the stuff that I did, all my works, everything that I did. He's going to own it and he's going to rule over it. Even though I showed how wise I was and all the buildings and stuff I did, he may be wise, he may be a fool, but he's going to have control of it, not me. This also is vanity. It's emptiness. It doesn't get you where you want to go in this life. It doesn't bring happiness. Then verse 20, therefore, I turned my heart and despaired of all the labor in which I had toiled under the sun. Why did I even do that? What's the point? I'm leaving it to somebody that I don't know what they're going to do with it. As it turns out, he left it to his son Rehoboam. What did Rehoboam do with it? He acted like a fool and listened to the younger advisors and just tried to tax the people more to get more and more stuff than what his dad had. His dad had unimaginable wealth and everything, but that wasn't enough. And so rather than appreciate and use it like Solomon intended it for, he just wanted to get more, and it ended up that the nation of Israel was divided into two parts, to Judah and Israel, because Solomon's son did not appreciate what he had. He wanted more. And so that's what he's talking about. And then he says, verse 21, for there is a man whose labor is with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he must leave his heritage to a man who has not labored for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. Many of us work hard and set aside money and money, put it in money market, stocks and all that kind of stuff, trying to get money to help us in our retirement and to have something to leave to our children. But when you get money that you didn't work for, what happens?
You don't appreciate it.
You can't appreciate it. You not only don't appreciate it, you can't really appreciate it. The only way you can is by doing the work yourself. So you would spend it in ways that my kids are gonna, if I have any money left over to leave to them, they're gonna spend it in ways that I never would. Just because it's they didn't work for it, so let's spend it. That kind of stuff. They might be wise and use it wisely, but they also might be fools where it comes to this and just waste it away. One of my sons, well, all three of my kids got an inheritance from their grandparents, $30,000, and I think it was within 2 years, it was gone. And he didn't have a thing to show for it. Part of the reason why is I'm not going to get into discuss that, but that's the kind of thing that happens. Grandma and grandpa would be very disappointed to know that that's what happened to the money that they worked hard to get, left it to the next the people that came after them. So anyway, we have to leave whatever our heritage is, whatever we have to leave it to somebody else. And bottom line is, what do we have? I put the word profit over to the side. Do you have any more at the end of your life to take with you? No, you may have a pile of stuff, but do you really have it? No, it stays here. And you go on. You look at Tutankhamun's tomb. He collected all this stuff during his being a king, piled it all in this huge room. You've all seen pictures of Tutankhamun's treasures and all the gold and the chariots and the even mummies of his servants, because they killed them when the pharaoh died. They killed the servants and mummified them so that they would be able to help the pharaoh in the afterlife, that sort of stuff. He's gone, but that stuff's still here, so what's the point? There's no profit to it. And here's why. All of his days are sorrowful, his work burdensome. Even in the night, his heart takes no rest. Bill Gates, you think he ever has any trouble sleeping? If you have anything, what is one of your main goals? To keep it. And another one is to add more. But how many people lay awake at night worrying about what's going to happen to what they have? And that sort of thing. And that's what he's talking about. Even Solomon, as rich and wise as he was, I'm sure he had sleepless nights and worries and concerns about the things that he had and how to take care of them and what's going to happen to him afterwards and all that kind of stuff. His heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. It's pointless. It doesn't get you where you want to go. Then he says, here's the first of the 6 statements that he makes that's going to be telling what the answer is. He says, nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. Nothing better than just enjoying the good in your labor. He's going to talk much more about that. It's 5 more times he's going to say it in different ways, but saying the same thing. The answer to life under the sun is enjoying what you have while you have it. This also I saw was from the hand of God. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment more than I? If there was anybody that ever lived on this earth, and I'm talking about before him and after him, even up until this day, you think Bill Gates was rich? Solomon had more than he had. And he says, if anybody can have enjoyment, it's me. But I saw that having all this stuff, the only thing you get out of it is the enjoyment that you have while you have it. To enjoy the good of your labor, all the things that you've done. And so I put at the bottom here, Solomon feels incredibly blessed, more than all men. Yet he struggled to find true happiness. He tried all these things and kept finding them coming up empty, grasping for the wind. Wine didn't do it. Mirth didn't do it. Building projects didn't do it. He's going to be talking about more things as we go on. But he's going to be taking a break and talk about something else in a little bit. But he continues here. He knows he's very blessed, but has that helped him to find happiness? Not really. The answer is not on this earth. It's not in earthly things. The answer is somewhere else. He says, for God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and collecting that he may give it to him who is good before God. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Now, people that are seeking after God, God gives them wisdom and knowledge because they seek after those things. They want to have that. God gives it to them, but to the sinner, one that's not seeking after the good things, the wisdom, knowledge, true joy. God gives them the work of gathering and collecting. They do a lot of work. The wise man gets to use it. I was trying to think of a good example. This is not exactly an example because it involves a good person acquiring things that God blessed him with. Sue and I didn't have a lot, went through things in our lives and struggled to keep alive financially and take care of our kids and all that kind of stuff. But we were trying to be wise. We were trying to be knowledgeable, learning what God wanted us to do and to have wisdom, making good decisions and that sort of thing. And God let us use things that somebody else had done. We had the friends that lived up in Fish Lake. God had blessed them, and they'd used a lot of wisdom, and they had acquired a really nice place up there. And they just invited people, come up and use it. It's just like it's your house. Just come up here and be with us, enjoy what we have. God's blessed us, enjoy it. And so we hadn't worked for it, but we got to use it. And that's kind of what he's talking about here, only he says he's talking about the sinner. Same thing happens when sinners build stuff. It may not be yours, but you get to use it. People invent the cell phone. I'm not wealthy, but I get to use what some sinner invented and perfected and made it affordable for me. That's the kind of thing he's talking about. This is not the answer for true happiness and fulfillment in this life on earth. The answer is not in gathering and collecting and all of that kind of stuff. That's not the answer. You can enjoy it, but that's not the answer to true happiness. So next week, we're going to get into chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the famous one that you always hear. To everything, there's a season, time for every purpose under heaven. So we'll be talking about that. It's kind of a little side trip in a way. We'll talk about that next week. Does anybody have any comments? Yes, I can. Oh, all the way to 8 and 9? There we go. Okay, I'll just leave it there for a while. Any other questions, comments? If not, then class dismissed. Thank you guys for your attention and appreciate all of you being here.